Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Deer, and I am the Director of Parent and Family Programs at William and Mary. Excited that you all could join us for this special edition of our webinar series, which is a Know Before You Go Commencement edition. I was reminiscing earlier today about maybe the first time that we were introduced, which was getting you all ready for your students' move-in appointments in 2020, which was a very different time for all of us, and I'm thinking we're probably all glad that we've made it to this point, especially. This is a big achievement for all of your students and your whole family, and congratulations to all of you. So we have a brief presentation from our commencement planning team this evening that will cover all of the nuts and bolts logistics of commencement. They're also the real experts, so they've seen this a few times, and they know the tips and tricks that all the pros know about commencement at William and Mary. So we're happy to take as many questions as we have time for. But with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to the crew, and I will be behind the scenes helping answer some Q&A, also dropping any relevant links in the chat. This session is being recorded, so feel free to take notes as we go, but also just know that this will be available for on-demand viewing after the fact. So with that, I will turn it over to our commencement planning team. Thank you all for being here.
Hi, Heather. Thanks so much for having us. I am Lauren Garrett. I'm with Student Transition Engagement Programs, and much like my work with you and your students, this is the in, through, and out portion of what our office does. The true man behind the curtain for commencement is Steve Tewksbury. I'm going to turn things over to introduce himself and then ask Greg to follow so that you have an idea of who you have joining you this evening. And then we're going to get into some of those nuts and bolts as Heather mentioned. Steve?
Hello, I'm Steve Tewksbury, Executive Director of University Events. We are a mighty department of 2 right now, and I have been at William and Mary for a little over 20 years and have been very actively involved in Charter Day logistics as well as commencement for about the last decade. So we are working hard to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible, and Greg and Lauren have been longtime collaborators. Andrea Harris in my department is not able to join us this evening, but she is the one doing a lot of the email and phone call answering. So,
Lauren, my name is Greg Henderson. I'm Chief of Staff for Student Affairs. So if you know the name Ginger Ambler, I work with her in the Vice President's office. So our office was primarily responsible for commencement from the 80s all the way up through a few years ago. We still have our hand in it, but University Events has taken on quite a bit, the lion's share of the logistics planning. We help out with the kind of a lot with the student side. Excited as always for commencement coming up. It's a great time of year for us. We love it. It's busy, but just the joy that we see in the students and in the families who come is just unparalleled. So it's a labor of love for us, and we're happy to be here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, so bear with us, folks. We have about 10 or so slides that we're going to try to get through to hopefully answer some of the preliminary questions that were asked either upon registering for the webinar or that we just know are frequently asked of families joining us for this exciting weekend of celebrations. So I'm going to get us started by talking about simply what we mean when we say commencement weekend. And then Greg and Steve are going to hop in as we go. So when we're talking about commencement weekend, we're really talking about the Thursday through Saturday of celebrations that are happening across campus. Many of your students might be talking about being involved in cultural or identity celebrations on either Thursday or Friday. We have a number of those events that are occurring. There's Catalampe on Thursday evening. There is the donning of the Kente, Lavender graduation, Ceremonia Raices, as well as a spiritual celebration for the graduates on Friday. And those events are really sort of student-driven, student-run, and families and supporters are definitely welcome to attend. No tickets required. Thursday evening, we have candlelight ceremony, which is held in the Wren Yard. This is a little bit of the bookend to the convocation ceremony that many of you may have watched virtually. and then hopefully through live stream that second year. But in the candlelight ceremony, the entire class gathers. There's a number of poignant speakers that the students select to sort of speak about and reflect upon their time at the university. And families are welcome to join as well on the periphery of that ceremony. And it's one of probably the more emotional of the celebrations over the course of the weekend. And then the main shindig, the main ceremony, is held on Friday evening from 7 to 9 p.m. And that's where we're going to spend the bulk of our time together during this time, this next hour, because we want to make sure that you know the ins and outs of what to expect for that main ceremony. Slated to be in Zabel Stadium, and in case of severe inclement weather, we will move to Kaplan, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means exactly in a moment. And then last and certainly not least, we want to make sure that families are aware that the academic major and program celebrations or ceremonies will be held between Friday and Saturday. As you may or may not know, our students are sometimes a little bit of an overachiever. And so sometimes there are 2 departmental ceremonies, or a departmental ceremony and a program ceremony that they want to attend. So make sure that you're having a conversation with your student about all of the different ways they plan on celebrating throughout commencement weekend, because lo and behold, you might find that they have themselves booked, not just for Thursday, but also for the main ceremony on Friday, and maybe even something again on Saturday. So make sure you're talking through that schedule of events so that you know what you're expected to be at. Academic major and program ceremonies and celebrations are open to all families and supporters who wish to attend. And again, no tickets are required. One key piece, we always get this question. Diplomas are not actually being handed over to graduates at any of these ceremonies. The diplomas instead will be mailed once each student's degree is conferred by the university registrar. So that's an important piece that needs to happen before they get that fancy piece of paper. And that fancy piece of paper will be mailed to the address that the students have noted with the university registrar. And so if there are any questions about that, your student will need to consult with the university registrar's office on that mailing address. So commencement weekend in a nutshell.
I'll add a
it.
couple of things. Candlelight ceremony, Lauren mentioned families are certainly welcome. We saw that question is what are families welcome to attend? And you can attend anything. The candlelight ceremony, there is not seating there though. This is a standing event. There are maybe 3 benches in the Wren Yard or the steps to the president's house. But other than that, it's a standing event. So keep that in mind if you want to come by. The ceremony itself lasts about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how long the speeches are. So it usually winds down around 10:15. And then a lot of your students will probably want to go out and celebrate with their friends afterwards. The main ceremony is it's the only ticketed event that we have. All of the other ceremonies, I think we addressed this a little bit later, but all the other ceremonies are not ticketed. An important thing about the main ceremony, and because it is a ticketed event, and I know that many of you have more family members than the number of allotted tickets that your student might get. The undergrads in particular, or the master's students, or most of the students, do not cross the stage at the main ceremony and have their names read. Only the doctoral students, so PhD and EDD students, of which there are about 50 to 60 usually. As a university ceremony, we thought it was important to celebrate the research happening at those levels. So those are the only students who cross the stage at the main ceremony on Friday evening. All of the other students will cross the stage and have their name read at their more intimate major program celebration. So, and the main ceremony is live streamed. So if your entire family is not able to get into the main ceremony because of those ticket limitations, those academic major and program celebrations are not ticketed. And those are really the core where you're meeting the faculty, and it's really a lot more personal. And that's a great one for families to attend. So that's hopefully a consolation for those of you who aren't able to get into the main ceremony, which again will be live streamed.
And if I may, just talking about number of tickets, we are working on that now. Tickets will probably be sent early next week. At this point, we are still getting students requesting tickets. Currently, we have about 1,400 undergrads and a little over 650 graduates, which gets us over 2,000 tickets. Our capacity, it's a numbers game. Our capacity of Zabel Stadium is approximately 15,000. Capacity of Kaplan Arena, if we are called inside, is about 10,000. So we will be figuring out the number of tickets that we can get to students. We can guarantee 6 outdoor tickets, which will be good for Zabel Stadium, and 3 indoor tickets if we are called inside. Those will be indoor only, 3 guaranteed. We are trying to do everything that we can to get additional tickets. But again, it is a numbers game. If you have 2,000 people graduating and 3 tickets, that's 8,000. Plus we have to consider staff, faculty, ushers, everybody else who is needed to support. So we cannot go above that 10,000 person capacity. Anyway, pray for good weather. It's going to be a lovely time. And we're getting the heat out of the way this week, apparently.
So true. So true. So let's talk a little bit about the main ceremony, just in terms of general logistics for folks. So main ceremony happening hopefully in the cool of the evening from 7 to 9 p.m. Very much echoes similar timing from convocation, which students have noted feels a little like sort of reminiscent of that initial time together, which we love hearing. Right now we are slated for Zabel Stadium, and the gates will open for guests to enter the stadium at 5:30 p.m. While guests are entering and filling the stadium, all of our graduate students who wish to partake in the final walk across campus will head over to the Wren Courtyard and be in place at 6 p.m. And so the walk across campus is not required. And so students who are simply joining for the ceremony will just need to come to the Sadler Terrace to get connected with the rest of the graduating cohort so they can participate in the processional to come into the stadium as part of the formal ceremony's entrance. The walk across campus will be live streamed into the stadium proper. So if you are one of those folks who wants to be and see and witness everything, do not worry. There are multiple camera angles that will be capturing the walk across campus as students make their way from the courtyard through the Wren building, beside and beyond the hearth, over the Crimdell Bridge, and then ultimately outside of the stadium where they will line up and get ready to enter the stadium for the ceremony. So that will be live streamed both inside the stadium, and it will also be part of that broadcast that Greg mentioned earlier. So that will be viewed prior to the ceremony actually starting on the live broadcast channel. I believe there will be a live YouTube link that our partners in Web and Design will push out on the web, and also into the mobile app, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, if there is severe inclement weather, venue will have to change. And as Steve mentioned, the venue that we are slated for in terms of a rain location is Kaplan Arena, and it is a smaller space. And so that does mean that there will be some impact to ticketed guests' availability to come inside and view the ceremony proper in person. And as Greg mentioned, that's why those departmental ceremonies oftentimes become so important for students and their supporters during the course of this weekend. Greg?
Yeah, thank you. So I was going to say about the presentation as we're waiting for the ceremony, as the students are walking across campus, and that video is really cool. There's also students will have an opportunity here, and I think they'll start taking pictures this week, and particularly with bell ringing, where they can post pictures of themselves ringing the bell or doing some festive things. and it'll show up in a pre-ceremony slideshow. And families can get involved in that too. If you wanted to, post something like "we're so proud of you," things like that. There will be a hashtag, I believe it's hashtag WMGrad, that you post to, and we'll be sending some more information out about that as well. But that's a lot of fun too, is just at the beginning of the ceremony, just waiting to see if your picture shows up and your child shows up. And it's a real bonus if you get to see your student crossing the Crimdale Bridge or something. It's just a lot of fun waiting to watch them to go. So yep, that's all I wanted to add about that.
Well, I think to that point, Greg, the fact that the ceremony is broadcast live means that afterwards, when you're home and in those moments of reflection, you can actually rewatch everything that was aired. And so if you didn't necessarily see your student on the Jumbotron in the stadium, there is the potential you may see them on that separate broadcast journey. So always a good one to tune into after the fact, to live in some of those memories and to live in some of those feels, as we like to say. Now, we mentioned severe inclement weather. Steve, what is not severe inclement weather?
So light rain and no chance of thunderstorms is probably the best way to describe not severe, in which case we would most likely, unless there are heavy thunderstorms or a chance of thunderstorms coming through the area. And we do have radar systems and NOAA contacts that we will be working with very closely to ensure that we are very safe. As with any event in Tidewater, Virginia in late May, anything can happen, and sometimes it does. We've been very fortunate the last couple of years, but we will make sure that we are safe first and foremost. You can imagine trying to get 15,000 people into a stadium and having to exit everyone because of thunderstorms in the area. We will do our best. We cannot control nature. If I could control nature, I would probably not be doing what I do.
True. So, and weather calls typically are made how soon in advance, at least for the main ceremony? What can we expect there?
We will do no less than 4 hours notice. Preferably it will be much further along so that you can make your plans. I did see questions about parking. We will have parking information up early next week. I just have the map with the different zones, which explains where parking is. We will have shuttles running from running from Kaplan Arena, the parking deck, and other places around campus. There is a great deal of construction going on campus. While it is wonderful to try and walk from point to point, particularly if you are alumni, I would warn you, and the map is pretty clear about where the fences are across campus. So if you think you know a way, check the campus map before you get underway to a path. But all that information, again, will be up early next week. There will be recommended zones for each of the ceremonies, Friday, Saturday.
Mm-hmm. All of those fun details that we get to work through as we figure out how to move everybody from point A to point B, so everybody has hopefully a wonderful experience. So when we're thinking about the main ceremony, some questions have come up about what is seating like? Where do I sit? Is there a special place for me? So seating for guests is general admission. Graduates in either location will be seated on the stadium field or arena floor. So in theory, no seat is a bad seat because you will be able to see them from up high and look down on them. And hopefully make out their cap. And if they decorated it, you'll be able to say, look, there they are right there. We will have designated seating available in both locations for those that might need special assistance. So for our guests who utilize wheelchairs, there will be wheelchair seating along either the stadium track or arena floor. And we are allowing one, maybe two companions to sit with them, depending on space as it exists. Guests who are limited mobility will be ushered to either lower seating areas with fewer stairs or the actual track or arena floor itself, dependent on need. And so we have a cadre of about 100 volunteers from across the university who help with this ceremony. And so when I say ushered, these will be the folks that, as you're coming in, they'll ask you, what are your needs? What are you able to do? What is comfortable for you? And they'll help make sure that you and your companions are seated appropriately so that you can take in and enjoy the full ceremony ahead. We also have a section of seating reserved for folks who might need American Sign Language interpretation. And if that is a need for you, you'll want to be on the lookout for that seating area. It is typically off to the side of the stage in an elevated area, and the interpreters are seated on the track. So again, you have full view of stage and interpretation at the same time. What's really important, and Steve mentioned this a little just a minute ago, is a lot of what we're talking about in terms of locations and maps and travel routes. All of this is going to be available on the website and in the mobile app through a series of maps. And so there will be seating maps. There's seating maps or diagrams of both ceremony potential locations that will be available on the web and in the mobile app for you to download and take a look at. The same thing with parking lots and shuttle stops and all of those good pieces when it comes to the departmental ceremonies. And so when we talk a little bit about how do you stay in touch and stay connected, that mobile app is really going to be the way to go for you. Want to make sure that folks know that once you're inside the stadium as a guest, that is where you need to stay. And so reentry can be a little bit complicated and difficult. And so we encourage folks that once you're in the stadium, that you try to remain in the stadium for that main ceremony as best as possible. We know that sometimes things pop up, but again, that's why ushers are there to help you navigate those situations. So inside the stadium, we will have representatives from the William and Mary Bookstore and Spirit Shop. They will be selling good tribe wares. So maybe you're looking for a last minute gift, or maybe you want to catch up on the newest hat, or, you know, it might be sunny. You might want a new hat, or think about a sweatshirt if perhaps it's a little bit chillier, but they will be there. The concession stands will be open in the stadium, and they will be offering light fare. So if folks are sort of thinking about food before or after ceremony, and if you just need a snack, the concessions probably are where it's going to be at for you. And then for those who have pre-ordered flowers for your grads for the ceremony, the flower booth pickup will actually be inside the stadium on Friday evening. It will remain on the Sadler Terrace on Saturday, but for Friday evening's program, they will be inside the stadium for your convenience. Now, we're seeing some questions about what can I bring, what can I not bring inside the stadium, and this is literally copied from the website. And as you may notice from the website, if you've visited recently, you will note that because we're utilizing both the Zabel and the Kaplan locations, those are both facilities that are under the purview of athletics. We are following their standard practice when it comes to the utilization of these facilities. Greg and Steve speak this language much more eloquently than myself. So I'm going to do my best to hit some hot topics. But we do have a bag policy. And so you can see here what's approved and what's prohibited. Clear bags, small purses, medical or diaper bags. Obviously, those sorts of necessities are approved. And then prohibited, you can see there in terms of what is not. So we're trying to minimize the stuff that is brought into the space. And then you can see under the sort of the other prohibited items, please don't bring your drone. That's not allowable during commencement. Obviously, one thing that we're concerned about as a committee is we want all of our families, all of our guests, all of our supporters to have a wonderful commencement experience. And so for us, we really lean into these prohibited items that athletics has put in place in terms of no noisemakers, laser pointers, balls, frisbees, inflatable objects, and the signs. No larger than, or the signs that are larger than the 24 inches by 36 inches, because for us, we want everyone to be able to enjoy the view of the ceremony as it's happening. And that also is case in point for umbrellas. Steve or Greg, anything that we want to share in terms of about what to bring or not bring in terms of stuff into either arenas?
Was typing some answers to some questions, so I hope that I didn't. I'm not going to repeat some of the things that you had already said, but one of the reasons for some of these items like signs and umbrellas is because we don't want to block views of other guests. So even if it's raining, a lot of folks will come with umbrellas and want to have those, but we can't, just because it does block the view of those who might be in front of you. What else was I going to say? You may have already mentioned this, Lauren, and I apologize if I'm repeating, about the sort of a bag check or a area. Did you mention that? Okay. So if you do come to a gate and somebody turns you away because you have one of these prohibited items, we do have bag check areas where you'll be able to leave it. So you don't have to go all the way back to your car to drop it off and then come back. And then you'll be able to come back after the ceremony to pick it up. And then special things on strollers, because we know that we have a lot of babies who come. By the way, children 2 and under do not need a ticket for themselves. They can sit on laps generally, so they do not count in the ticket count. But we have a stroller parking area, and then of course there are diaper bags. They say that no outside food, but if you have a baby who needs Cheerios or Goldfish, obviously those will be permitted. So anything else, Steve, about the clear bag? Because the clear bag is a new policy this year.
Clear bag is a new policy. Basically treat this like a sporting event or a concert. I'm sure many of you have attended, and with new policies, they're basically for your safety and not to try and hassle you or send you back to the car for extra steps. A few things in terms of remembering to do before you enter the stadium is to download those tickets that your young adult is going to be sending you prior to getting on campus or in the stadium. Wi-Fi is very spotty with 10,000 plus people trying to get on Wi-Fi. Very difficult to try and download tickets at the gate. Please do that ahead of time. Save it to your wallet on your phone. Those tickets will be scanned and they are a one and done. So you can't share tickets as with all those type of events. So try and make sure that you do those things. I'm trying to think what else. Somebody asked about restrooms. Again, these are larger stadiums. Zabel has plenty of restrooms on multiple levels. Kaplan Arena also has restrooms. There may be some waiting, particularly in the ladies' room in Kaplan, but we will do our best. We do not plan on having porta potties around the facilities. And for the other departmental ceremonies, they will be around either buildings or inside buildings that do have restroom facilities. In terms of handicap family members, please do request handicap parking. We will send anybody that requests handicap or drop-off request will be sent either a drop-off or a handicap tag for campus. We have a limited number close by the stadium in both locations for handicap seating and for parking. Otherwise, we'll be dropping and we will do our best to get you back to the stadium after you park your car.
So 2 quick pieces before we move on to specific, some more ticketing information. Camera or binocular cases is noted as prohibited. In this case, we're talking about the professional scaled camera cases. So your everyday camera that you might bring with you to and from events that have sort of the quick pocket piece, those are just fine. If you do have a larger professional camera that you are planning to bring with you, there may be an instance where they ask you to bring the camera inside, but leave the case out and you can check that in a similar space where Greg was talking about the stroller check outside. So that's something to be mindful of. And then people are asking about flowers. So if you've decided not to pre-order flowers, can you bring flowers in with you into the stadium? I don't see that on the prohibited items list, and so I would assume that that is allowable. Now, if your flowers are going to block the view, you've decided instead of a bouquet of flowers, you've decided to bring a potted plant or a palm tree with you, then probably not. It won't be allowed in because you will block the view of others. So just a little humor, as I know that this can be a very stressful time, but we want this to be celebrative. And so we're going to try to take deep breaths, and our ushers will hopefully use good common sense. So if you show up at the stadium and you have a question or there's something questionable about what you want to bring in, our ushers will, their purpose is to help and to help find solutions that work for everybody. And so we're gonna assume that all will go well in that sense when it comes to items coming in, because everybody wants this to be a positive experience for those involved. Greg?
I'm reading through some questions, and so I'm trying to type some, but I think what I'll do is I'll respond. We have a lot of questions about attire and what to wear. And so
we have a slide on that.
And we'll have a slide on that in a little bit.
Let's hold that for a second.
Okay, and I do want to say, I want to clarify, because some graduation ceremonies have students sit in alphabetical order or by department, and we do not. Ours is sort of the students may sit with their friends. And the way that their degrees are conferred at the main ceremony is in groups. So the president will say, well, all students in psychological sciences, please rise as you are able, and then we'll confer the degree. And there are going to be students from psychological sciences sitting all throughout. And so they're not sitting as one group together or in alphabetical order. So it may be difficult finding your grad when they first walk in, but I'm confident that most of you with our cell phone technology will find one another. They'll see you in the crowd and you'll be able to find them, hopefully. But I just wanted to mention that we have general seating for students, but we don't assign any seating by alphabetical order. Question here about finding out about tickets, Steve, about when students have gotten the 4 extra tickets for which they applied for the lottery tickets. And I think you addressed some of that a little bit, where you're still going through the numbers to figure out what the final numbers are. And that sounds like maybe next week they'll find out.
Correct.
Okay. A couple of questions about departmental ceremonies being live streamed or taped. Some are, but most of them are not. I think the ones that maybe, Steve, you might have a better idea, but I think maybe law school, maybe business, there are some of the larger ceremonies, but.
Right. As I understand it, is the larger ceremonies, law, 9 a.m. on Saturday, business, which is grad and undergraduate, 4 o'clock on Saturday. Those are both in Kaplan Arena. And I believe School of Education, which is 9 a.m. on Saturday, will also be live streamed. I am uncertain about other departments.
And then another question, can you bring something to sit on like a blanket? So yes, you may, and these are bleacher seats. And so we actually do allow you to bring like one of those seats that you can have that have like the back on them. That is not in the prohibited items list unless I'm mistaking something, but they do not typically, I think, allow those at athletic events, but we allow them here because sitting for that many hours in a bleacher seat, if you bring one of those folding ones or the blow up ones where you can sit on with the little back on them, that is permitted. And we'll make sure that our security folks know that, because sometimes they're not allowed for athletic events, but we do allow them here. So, okay. Go ahead, Lauren, sorry.
We're good. It's all good information. This is why it takes a village to make this happen. So we've hit on tickets a little bit here. Again, only required for main ceremony. Students were initially offered up to 6. There was an opportunity for students to request more out of a lottery, and as been mentioned, hopefully they'll be notified of those outcomes here within the next week or so. For folks that are sort of curious about what are we talking about when we're talking about types of tickets, you may hear your students talking about all weather tickets versus outdoor only. And so the outdoor only are if the ceremony happens in Zabel or at Zabel. An all-weather ticket means that it's good rain or shine. And so those all-weather tickets mean that those are the folks that are going to be joining us in Kaplan, should we need to move that direction. And so that's the big distinction. And that's why I asked Steve, how soon will we know, right? And so if you've got to make a decision on who's going to go and who's going to attend and who's not, you want to make sure that those conversations happen sooner rather than later, because we know transportation's involved, childcare may be involved, and definitely just making sure that everybody knows where everybody is. Hurting your family can sometimes be the most challenging piece of this weekend. And so we want to make sure that we're giving you enough time to do that. As has been mentioned, the tickets for commencement will be delivered to your student's William and Mary email address. From there, the students will need to transfer the tickets to their guests, or they can print them out, because the tickets themselves will be scanned at the gate. Their instructions will be provided in that initial ticketing email about how to transfer tickets. And each ticket can only be scanned once. Okay, and so that is how we make sure that folks aren't duplicating tickets in order to game the system. Okay. And now we're going to get into the tire. Get ready, Greg. Get ready to answer these questions. So for your graduating students, candlelight ceremony is the cap and is the gown. They do not wear the hood. They don't wear the piece that goes around the neck and down the back. So for candlelight, graduating students are only in sort of the all black attire. For the walk across campus and the main ceremony, they should be in full regalia. So cap, gown, hood, all of the flair that we know that they love is totally welcome. And then the same goes for the academic major and department celebrations or ceremonies, full regalia. However, some faculty will ask students to maybe say, don't wear the cap, it makes it too formal, or we're outside and it's hot. And in some cases, they may all choose to just be in nicer regular clothes. So definitely have a conversation with your student about what the expectation is for the department celebration or ceremony, but full regalia is what is expected there, unless there's been a conversation with the faculty, with the students themselves. For guests, point 1, from the time you moved in to the time you graduate, we're going to tell you to dress in attuned to the weather and the activity. So you're going to be walking, so comfortable shoes. There is the potential in Williamsburg that it could be sunny one moment and you could have light showers the next. So make sure that you're thinking about lightweight materials as appropriate, and thinking about layers, especially once we hit that sort of 8-9 p.m. It can get a little bit chilly in Williamsburg in the evening and early summertime. So just be mindful of that. Because we can't do umbrellas in the stadium, rain jackets and ponchos will all be very stylish at that moment in time. If there's a light drizzle and we're all donned in a poncho, it will be definitely an event to remember. And then of course, weather appropriate, think about hats, appropriate hats, sun hats, things of that nature to protect your skin. And then of course, we're always going to recommend sunscreen, just to make sure that everybody's sort of taking precautions based off of what's happening and where locations are. Now, for candlelight ceremony for guests, families, come as you are. Nothing special for yourselves, but be mindful, because as Greg mentioned, there's no seating or very limited seating. So you're going to want to make sure probably the comfortable shoes. It is evening, and sometimes it can be a little buggy. So maybe a little bug repellent out there in the yard. And we'll have the beauty of the cicadas as well to be working with. So I'm sure that will be an additional piece of nature for us all to enjoy at candlelight. At commencement, you will see families and supporters dressed in a variety of ways. You will see some families that are in coat and tie. You will see some families that are in jeans and nice polos, a sundress, jeans and a t-shirt. So what we're going to tell you is to be comfortable and to dress however you feel is most appropriate for this ceremony. Most of our students under their cap and gowns will be in some sort of business casual at the very least, a polo, a nice pair of slacks, a skirt, a blouse, what have you. And so just sort of match the vibe that you feel is appropriate for the ceremony. We're never going to tell you what to exactly wear or what not to wear, but we do want to make sure that you're comfortable because those 2 hours are 2 hours. And so you don't want to necessarily be worried about attire when you should be focused on the celebration at hand. And then the same goes for the academic major and departmental celebrations. I think there'll be a little bit more movement here, and that's where I personally really lean into the comfortable shoe aspect. Steve and Greg, you've been doing this a little bit longer. Any suggestions for guest attire?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's what you feel comfortable with. And, I did see some questions about, you wearing a coat and tie, and that's fine. And we see a lot of folks wearing coat and tie, because, commencement is an important, occasion. And, but if it's going to be a few years ago, we had, I think, 97-degree weather. It was like really, really hot. And so, maybe then it's just a tie, and not the coat. So whatever, I think whatever you feel more appropriate with. Steve?
Right. I would say the stadium, if you're entering at 5:30, the sun will still be going by 7:30. It should be down. But there are parts of the stadium that are going to be getting full sun for at least an hour and a half. So the majority of the people coming in earlier are going to be sitting in the west stand, which is the taller of the two stands, for the most part. So those who are sitting on the east stands closest to the parking lot, will be in sun for some time, just as a heads up. But again, once the sun goes down, it's usually much cooler. I would say dress for comfort on Friday evening for the main ceremonies. For the departmental ceremonies, I think you would probably want to dress up a little bit more for the family photos, with your student. That would be my recommendation.
Can we talk about the vehicle drop-off pass a little bit? Is that coming up in the parking section? Okay, because I did see quite a few questions about how do I get the parking pass. So a couple of things on clarification on that. So the vehicle, so the way that you request it is your student, when they registered, they could indicate if they had guests who might have limited mobility needs and might need to have a vehicle access pass in order to drop off at either Kaplan Arena or at Zabel Stadium. So, and those will be emailed. If your student didn't know or wasn't sure and didn't request one, you can always have your student go ahead and reach out to commencement@w.edu and request one, and then they'll receive an email with a map, and the vehicle access pass. If you already have an ADA hang tag, a handicap hang tag, or sticker on your vehicle, you do not need the vehicle access pass. That will allow you, they will let you in to do the drop off at that time. So you can use that. Also, the vehicle access pass is only for drop off at either Kaplan Arena or Zabel Stadium for limited mobility guests. It does not serve as a handicap pass. So it doesn't mean that you can go and park in a handicap parking spot. They will try as best they can. If you have a limited access, if you have a vehicle access pass, they will try to park you as close to the stadium as possible, so that you don't have as far to go to get your car to come back to pick up your guests at the end. So that's how those work. There are all sorts of good instructions and maps that your student should receive.
Steve, do you want to chat a little bit about the limited mobility shuttles before we move into full-blown parking?
Sure. So there are a limited number of handicap spaces. The side lot right next to Zabel Stadium has a limited number that will be dedicated to handicap parking. Those are basically, you must have a handicap tag on your vehicle. Anybody with a handicap tag can park there. But again, those spaces are going to be somewhat limited. If you need to drop off people, the car would then be taken to another lot, and we have limited mobility shuttles that will be running from Kaplan Arena. And again, this will be on a map, as well as the parking deck up of Ukrop Drive near the business school. And those will be going to Zabel Stadium. That will drop off low mobility. We'll be using golf carts for the most part on Friday. We'll be using golf carts and shuttles probably on Saturday, so that those will be point to point. We'll try and move as many people as possible. Again, those shuttles should be for people with limited mobility. They are 6-person golf carts. We are not able to put children, I guess, in the cart because of legal issues. I'm not sure of the height, weight, and all that, but we need to be mindful of that. We'll put that information out, but it is, for the most part, for people with mobility issues getting from point A to point B. And again, those will run Friday, point to point, mostly golf carts. And we will do our best to get you there quickly. Somebody had a question about after the ceremony. And this really doesn't have to do much with parking, but it does have to do with being inside the stadium. Friday evening is the end of a long day, and there's another day that has to follow. We would like to clear the stadium, not immediately, but very soon after, so that your celebrations can begin outside of the stadium, and we can reset and have our staff prepared for the following morning. So that's just a word. There will be announcements going out following the end of the ceremony. We certainly want to have you celebrate, but we will be moving, asking people to move from the stadium at the end of the ceremony.
Summer students do not recess out
Correct.
of the stadium, so they will be there at the very end.
For things that have to do with particular departmental ceremonies, particularly honors cords and those type of things, I would encourage your students to contact those departments directly. University Events is doing the best we can for the main ceremony and getting all the little bits and pieces that are coming out of those ceremonies. But for specific departmental ceremony questions, have your student contact those departments directly, please. Thank you.
I saw a question about cords. William & Mary does not distribute honor cords. The grade calculations are happening just almost right up to commencement, so they can't guarantee which cum laude or summa cum laude or magna cum laude a student might be. So we don't do honor cords. However, a lot of students, if they're a member of an honor society, will get cords from their honor society. A lot of students will get stoles. Maybe from one of the identity celebrations or from something else that they feel an affinity with. So students will have stoles and cords. They're just not officially, the honor cords are not officially issued by William & Mary. So just want to answer that question.
Okay. We're almost through our 10 slides, and the time is coming up. So we're going to try to move quickly. So parking, we've talked about this at a number of points in time. And again, I'm going to point to the mobile app and the website. There will be a parking cheat sheet is what I call it, that will be provided for guests that will do a number of things. One, Steve is holding it up to the camera. It's a really handy dandy sheet. On one side will be an actual campus map, and it will show you all of the, see right there, it's going to show you all of the parking lots that are available for the course of the weekend. And it's also going to show you the shuttle loops. So those low mobility shuttle stops and loops that Steve mentioned, those are also noted on that map. And so that's a great one to have. 3 parking lots are going to be your friend for the main ceremony: Kaplan Arena, the Compton parking lot, and then the parking deck on Ucrop Way. Chances are your student knows at least one of those. So if nothing else, hopefully they can help you get from point A to point B. And then once you're on campus, you can open up your William & Mary mobile app and you can map your way from the parking lot to the stadium or to the arena, depending on where we're located. Department ceremony parking. When Steve held up that map, you saw a grid, hopefully in his camera, might have been very small, but that grid literally is a legend of, oh, you need to go to this ceremony. This is the parking lot, an area that is closest to your destination. And so you'll want to reference that map when it gets uploaded to the website so that you can, again, figure out how to get from point A to point B during the course of your time on campus. And again, the website and the mobile app will have this document uploaded within the coming week. Our expert colleagues in parking and transportation prepare that map for us. And so it is very specific and it will be primed and updated based off of where we are with construction and roadways and sidewalk availability as well. So when Steve was saying be mindful of, you know, what may or may not be closed based off of the comprehensive plan that's being enacted right now, that map will have taken all of those pieces into account, and hopefully you will have smooth sailing walking around and getting from place to place. All right, so our last slide is about how you stay connected. How do you know if the rain plan has been enacted, whether that's for the main ceremony or a smaller ceremony on Saturday? How do you know if things have changed or you need to access a map that I've been talking about this whole time? There are 2 ways. One, but you can follow on social media, the Commencement Facebook page. You can also follow the hashtag. But by and large, what we want you to do is we want to make sure that you're on the mobile app. So for those that have attended campus events, orientation, maybe day for admitted students since, or your student maybe talks about how they track the bus getting to and from campus. This is how they're doing it, is through the William & Mary mobile app. It's downloadable via the App Store or Google Play. And it has a module in it that's literally called WM Grad. And that module will contain, as you can see here in the screenshot, schedules of events, main ceremony information, and a lot of the information that we've just chatted about here. And so Heather has put that in the chat so everybody can find it and download it and stay in tune. And now if you don't have a phone that has the smart feature, you can also see the mobile app on your computer. So if you visit m.wm.edu, you will see the mobile app version on your desktop computer. Just a little fun fact. All right. So we are currently at 7:57.
I'm looking through a lot of the questions here that have come in. There were quite a few, and again, I apologize if this has already been answered about the cameras or the binoculars without the bags. And so yes, absolutely, cameras and binoculars are permitted. The bag is the issue because of the clear bag policy. So, but please, we want to make sure that you can see things, you can see your student, and that you can take pictures. There was a question about students who are double majoring, why they're requested to go to only one departmental ceremony. It's recommended that they go to their primary major, and part of that is just a numbers game based on how many people that the department can handle, based on, because we assign space based on the number of primary majors in those spaces. So that is the main reason, but we also know that that a lot of students will go to 2 ceremonies, and it's not prohibited. So more just encouraged that they choose one. but we know that they have an affinity for two of their majors, which they probably do, and they can make it work in their schedule that they will try to go to two. The main thing is that they need to make sure that they let their department know, because the department's ordering a certain amount of food, and they also will have their diplomas, their stage diplomas to give them. So they want to make sure that they don't miss them. The question about umbrellas, again, at the outside ceremony, if it's drizzle, ponchos or rain jackets. And again, the main reason for the umbrellas is because when people pop them open, it's blocking the view of the folks behind them. And so that's the main reason. And there was a question about having a little pocket umbrella. And even though that they're convenient to carry, it's the same issue when you open it in front of somebody else who's behind you, and then they can't see. So unfortunately, umbrellas aren't permitted in the ceremony. Let me see what else. Students allowed to carry balloons as they walk. I've never seen students actually carrying balloons, but they would not be able to come into the stadium with them. We do have a collection where we collect water bottles and we collect bottles and things like that from students before they go in. There is water for the students under their seats, so we don't deprive them of water. We want to make sure that they can have them. It's just a matter of them bringing kind of water bottles that may have any number of liquids in them that we want to make sure. There's a question about guests bringing water bottles. Yes, you can bring an empty water bottle with you and then fill it. We do have water filling stations there if you want to do that. Receptions for families with students, those are primarily at the departmental ceremony level. We're 8 o'clock, Heather. I don't know if I'm happy to stay a little bit longer, but I want to make sure that we're trying to get to all the questions.
We can certainly keep going. If Lauren and Steve, if anyone has to run, you're more than welcome to. Also, if any of our families have to run and you're like, you didn't answer our questions, you can send emails to families@wm.edu and I'll do my best to respond, or you can send an email to commencement@wm.edu. We'll do our best to respond. But if we have questions, we can keep answering. We can continue on.
One question that's come in, we've talked about security and things like that, but also about what if there, everything going on in the world right now, what if there's a protest or what if there's a disruption? We plan for every major university event, we plan for disruption. We have language, we have protocols, we have people who are trained. And so if there is a disruption, recognizing that this is an event, a momentous occasion for everyone, that this is the high school class of 2020, and here we are in 2024, and we don't want to, have a major disruption. We can't guarantee that there won't be one. We have a stadium with 15,000 people, and we can't always control what other people, we can't control, I mean, simply that what other people are going to do, but we can control our response to it. And we have an excellent police force here. We have excellent administrators who have worked in these areas before. And like I said, we've done these protocols for a lot of our major university events. So if there are disruptions, we will do everything we can to minimize the distraction and obviously keep the ceremony moving, because this is a moment for you and it's a moment for the students, and we want to make sure that we are focusing on that and not on the disruption. So I just wanted to make sure that we address that. What else?
If we want to touch on tickets, again, it's a numbers game. Over 2,000 people, students are processing. Six tickets each, 2,000 times 6 is 12,000, plus your 2,000 is 14,000. It's going to be very difficult to figure out who gets which, and a lottery, as much as I want to say that you could have additional tickets, we're going to do our best to get everybody in there and be safe, but we cannot guarantee uh, that your student would get that 7th ticket if we are outside. Again, we still have students who are applying to walk. We will do our best to get as many into that main ceremony. But once again, it's a numbers game. We cannot build additional seats, and we have to be safe with capacities. Next week, you will know for sure.
I'm going to chime in really quick just before a lot of families hop off because I've seen this a couple times. I'm going to interrupt the logistics for a moment to be a little sentimental. I just want to say thank you to all the families who are on the call. There are 180 of you here. We started our journeys together in a tumultuous time, and we're ending our times together in a slightly less tumultuous time despite the world around us. I just want to say thank you for being here with me. It's been a joy to walk alongside you during your students' journey at William and Mary. I was so excited when they arrived on campus that August of 2020, and I'm so thrilled that I get to see you all and celebrate this moment with all of you in a couple weeks. So I just want to say that before everyone hops off. I know a couple people have mentioned some things in the Q&A, so it's been a pleasure to support you and support your students every step of the way. So just want to say that, and then we can continue on with the great questions.
Seeing we still have about 180 people. So if the photo slideshow, what kind of photos do parents typically post, and when is the deadline? So they might post, we're proud of you. Like they might even post a picture of the child is, in kindergarten, like on the first day of kindergarten, things like that. But they're celebratory photos. The deadline is, you will actually probably see some photos popping up that are taken during the walk across campus. So I would say the earlier you get them in, then the more that our team over in University Web of Design can curate them and get them in. They do screen for, I guess, I don't want to say appropriateness, but we want to make sure that not every photo is just going to automatically make it in. Like if a student is giving an obscene gesture, that probably won't make it in while they're on the walk across campus. But so the photo slideshow is a lot of fun. Gender neutral restrooms. Every building will have a gender neutral restroom. I believe, Lauren, you probably know more than I do about the gender neutral restrooms, but there are gender neutral restrooms throughout campus.
So in the stadium, you'll definitely want to reach out to an usher because just because of the large scale of the facilities, but in all of the buildings, it may not be noted as gender neutral. You might find a restroom that's single use.
Single use, yeah.
Yeah. And so the language might look a little bit different in each building, but they are available.
Students about bell ringing. Our families welcome at bell ringing. I would say, just based on my years of experience, I don't see many families making the journey out for bell ringing, especially since it's happening separate from the main commencement celebrations. If you're worried about catching a photo or a video of your student at bell ringing, don't you worry. The student in front of them or behind them in line will take their photo. If not, I will be there for half the day and I will make sure that they get a photo or a video. I'm going to be actually in the bell room. So I will be like, your mom and dad want a picture of this. So don't worry. If someone will be like, wait a minute, let me get a photo for you if you aren't able to make it to campus for bell ringing.
If you happen to be in town and want to go, yes, of course. Families go in and take pictures. It's a celebratory time. Students who park cars all year permanent on campus, and one of the places they keep the cars there, or do they have to move them? So it's kind of a parking free-for-all during commencement weekend, is that any faculty staff spots can be anybody's spots. Student spots can be anybody's spots. The only thing that you can't park in a spot that's reserved for any safety vehicles, any handicap spot, unless you have a handicap placard, or facilities management vehicles or things like that. So those are the main ones that you can't park in if they're reserved, or there are signs throughout campus saying reserved for You can't park in one of those reserved 4 spots, but everywhere else is fair game. One thing about parking in town is be very careful about parking on the streets of Williamsburg, because they will issue tickets on the streets of Williamsburg. So follow what the signs say. If it says no parking without decal, that's what it means. And they will come around. If it's 2-hour parking, then it's 2-hour parking. So in the city of Williamsburg, you should follow the rules that you see on those signs throughout town.
There are also paid lots nearby in Colonial Williamsburg and the city of Williamsburg. Most of them are through the Passport system. So if you have a Passport app, if you're in the city, you can use that to pay for parking. And that's pretty much guaranteed.
Photo studio available on campus for family to take graduation photos. We don't have a studio on campus, but a lot of folks will go out and about. And it's a beautiful campus. So they'll find one of those iconic spots and try to get a picture with their graduate or of their graduate in one of the places around campus. But we don't have an indoor studio that I know of where families go. Students find out about Phi Beta Kappa. They would hear directly from that organization, from that honor society. So for Phi Beta Kappa, so they should be hearing directly from Phi Beta Kappa. When undergraduates being briefed and prepared for the ceremony, we send this is what you need to know, this is where you need to be, this is what you need to wear to them. And those who choose not to read it, their friends will tell them where to go and where to be, or they just follow the person in front of them. But we try to help out as much as we can by giving them bulleted points, not long flowy language. We like bulleted points and saying, this is what to wear, this is where to be. And the senior class president will also send out messages to the graduating students to help them out as well.
Yeah, there are Instagram stories and other things like that are very, very basic, but they have most of the information. Yeah.
Something all families have heard Lauren and I say, and you have heard us say this from the moment you started hearing from the both of us, is that your students should be checking their William and Mary email early and often. So they have been getting email communications. They will continue to receive email communications. And also, I just want to throw out there, every single link that was shared with you this evening is available on the Commencement website. So that is your go-to hub, your go-to resource. It will be updated if any new information arises. So as those parking maps are finalized and if anything changes, the website and the mobile app are your go-to locations. Any of the links shared this evening. So if you're worried about anything that was shared in the chat, your hub is the Commencement website. That's also a great place for students to be briefed on what procedures are as well. But they should continue to check their William and Mary email even as their time runs short. So I think we've gone long enough. I know we still have some questions that haven't been answered, but hopefully we did a decent job covering the basics of commencement and some of the words of wisdom from the pros who have done this year after year. So I just want to thank all of them for giving up some time this evening to help brief us on what Commencement 2024 will look like. Just want to say thank you all again to families for being here with us. It has been truly a pleasure to support you over the last 4 years. And I'm so excited to see all of you on campus for Commencement. This is an exciting time. Congratulations to all of you. You'll hear it over and over. And we can't wait to see you in just a couple weeks. So thanks again, and everyone have a good evening. Bye, everyone.